Good morning, my name is Kelly Phillips. I'm a community services coordinator here at Kids in Crisis, and I run our SafeTalk program. Today we're going to be presenting a video to you of our SafeTalk program so that parents, teachers, school staff can see the presentation and have a good understanding of exactly what their students will be seeing when we come to their school. We hope that this is really informative, and of course, if there's ever any questions you may have, you can always reach out to us. To give you a little bit of background of the SafeTalk program, this is an assault prevention program that we adopted from ICAP, the International Center for Assault Prevention. We took the curriculum, made some modifications, and adapted it to the curriculum for the students that we would be presenting to. We now present this program to K-5 students throughout Fairfield County. We start off the presentation by talking to the students about their rights. And we talk about the differences between rights and privileges. We specifically talk to them about the rights to feel safe and strong and free and what that means to them. So in the beginning, when we're asking them to feel safe, we're looking for them to say things like they feel protected, they feel comfortable. We then ask them places and people that they feel safe with. And throughout the presentation, we really want to hear the children comment on that they feel safe and protected with teachers and at school. We then move on to the next right, to feel strong and what it means to feel strong. And we look for the differences between feeling inside strong and body strong. What we really want to talk to the kids about through this presentation is to feel inside strong, that they feel confident, learning how to feel how they can stand up for themselves, stand up for others. And then we move on to what it means to feel free, and for the children to understand that they have the freedom to make their own choices. So from there, after we talk to the children about their three basic rights to feel safe, strong, and free, we then move into the rest of the presentation. So the first thing that we're going to be covering is bullying. So we asked the children, have you ever seen a play before? And of course they all raise their hand and say they have, and then we explain to them that we're going to be doing some plays for them today, and we're going to show the unsuccessful version of something and then successful version. So as I mentioned, the first topic that we're going to be covering is bullying. In our unsuccessful bullying skit, this is two students having a conversation in the hallway at school.
Oh, where did you get those shoes? They're so ugly.
What do you mean?
You know that everybody's making fun of the way you dress in person and online, right?
People are making fun of the way I dress?
Yeah, I mean, look at you. You dress so weird. And don't go tell anybody on me, because then you'll just be a tattletale.
So that's our unsuccessful skit on bullying. From here, we ask the children, how do you think Sarah felt in that video? How does Sarah feel in that skit? And we're looking for answers that the children will say that she feels embarrassed, that she feels sad, that she feels nervous, that she didn't like the way that people were making her feel in school. And we ask her, what can you do about it? Do you think she felt so mad that she wanted to pop Brooke in the nose? And of course the kids will say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do that. And we say, of course you're not going to be able to do that. Even if you felt that way, we explain to kids, we don't fix a problem by making a new problem. So from there we say, well, what could you do? And from there, the students always have a lot of great answers. They talk about how they can speak up for themselves, how they can tell somebody. And I'll ask them, well, in the play, they said, well, if you tell on me, that's tattling. So we get into a little bit about when is something tattling and when is something really important. We want the children to understand that their rights of feeling safe, strong, and free are being taken from them. You can always tell somebody. And then we do some asking around, who can they tell? We say any safe adult. That could be a parent, that could be someone at school, a teacher, any safe adult, and you can speak to them about it. We also talk about using their words. And then from there we explain that we have safety words, and our safety words are no and stop. And anytime you feel like your rights are being taken away, it's okay to say that. And we say you can almost use it as a complete sentence. You don't have to say anything else about it. You can just look at somebody and very strongly say no, or you can say stop. And the children practice saying that. And then from there we'll say, sometimes do you feel like if you have an older kid that's giving you a hard time that you might not feel so inside strong to be able to stand up for yourself on your own? And they'll kind of nod and, say, yeah, it is a little bit hard to do that. And we'll say, maybe you'll feel better if you have a friend. And we encourage them to bring a friend along. So we talk about all this, and then we'll say, let's try the skit again. And we ask for a volunteer to come help out, and we'll do the skit again. And that's when we do our successful version of this skit. We go through it, and the children always love being involved in the skits. We go through it a second time, and we'll say, yeah, didn't it work out better that time? And they'll all agree that they could do that. And we talk about, maybe these situations don't just happen in the hall at school. Where else do they happen? And they'll always have great, input. They'll say it happens on playgrounds, it happens on the school bus, it happens in the lunchroom, it happens in an activity that they have after school. And we encourage them to understand that you can use these same strategies anywhere. And then from there we talk about how, in the skit, they talked about how this child was being picked on online as well. And this is where we get into talking about appropriate behavior online, which is obviously a really big piece today, especially for our older grades. Lots of times we go into a classroom and the teacher will say, if you can really focus even more on the internet and online piece even more, that's what we really need in our class. So we start off by saying, what is appropriate to say online, and how we say things online really matters. Sometimes when you're just texting something to somebody, you may not use the same kind of kindness that you would if you're looking at somebody eye to eye. And we want people to understand, the students to understand, that it's just as important, if not even more important, to really think about what we say before we type that text or post something. Because what we have the children say, and I have them repeat it back, is things we put online never go away. And we'll say, sometimes it's like putting something online, it's like putting it up on a billboard in the middle of New York City. And once it's there, it's never going away. And, every time that email or that text or that video or that picture or whatever it was is shared, it's going to keep hurting somebody's feelings. It's going to keep getting you in trouble. So we encourage them to really, really think about it before they put it out there. Is this going to be something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings? Is this going to be something that's going to keep getting me in trouble? To really be mindful of it, especially as kids are moving on to middle school and they're getting a phone and they're starting to use their computers and their phones for more things, to really, really be thinking about it, to protect themselves and to be mindful of others. So now we're going to show you the successful version of this skit.
Brooke said everyone's talking and laughing about me online. I have to tell her to stop. She doesn't have the right to pick on me. Will you help me stand up for myself?
Yes.
Oh, those shoes are disgusting. You're wearing them again? I can't believe it.
You need to stop picking on me and talking about me online. I like my shoes.
Well, clearly you're the only one that likes them.
No, I'm not going to change them. I like them, and it's none of your business what I wear.
Who's this?
This is Kelly.
Oh, well, why don't you just get out of here? This doesn't concern you.
No, we're sticking together, and you better stop talking about me, or we're going to report you to the principal.
Whoa. I was just kidding. Can't you babies take a joke?
Stop calling us babies, and no, it wasn't a joke.
Whatever, I'm out of here.
Thanks for helping me out.
Thank you. So after we finish bullying, we move on to our stranger piece. And we begin with asking students, what is a stranger? And the children will say a stranger is simply somebody you don't know. When we ask them, does that mean all strangers are bad? They'll say no. And we'll say, well, are all strangers good? And they'll say no. And we'll say, well, can you really tell by looking at somebody for the first time if they're safe or unsafe? Sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. It's like, actually, you really can't tell if somebody they might look fine, but they might be, not somebody that's not safe. So we tell students we need to treat all strangers the same way, very carefully. In this unsuccessful stranger skit, Sarah is walking home from school by herself and is approached by a stranger, somebody she just doesn't know, has never seen before.
Oh, hey, kid. I've seen you around here before.
Oh, hey.
Hey, yeah, you live in that White House over there, right?
Oh, no, I live in that green one over there.
And what was your name?
Sarah.
Sarah,
Jones?
Sarah Jones, right. Oh, your mom's Mrs. Jones.
You know my mom?
Yes, and I'm actually so glad that I found you because she sent me. She's in the hospital right now.
Is she? Oh my gosh, she's in the hospital. Is she okay?
Don't worry, she's totally fine, but she sent me to come pick you up.
But I'm not allowed to go with strangers.
Yeah, well, you're coming with me.
So after this skit, the kids are really, really excited to raise their hand because I asked them, so tell me some of the tricks that were played on Sarah. And they are always really, really great at having all the right answers. That she gave away what her name was, and then she gave what her last name was. She showed Brooke exactly where she lives. She gave her her first name, she gave her her last name, she talked about what her mother's name was. So we have a conversation about how we don't share any of this personal information with people. And then I say, what happened at the very end? And we'll say, well, Brooke grabbed Sarah and ran off with her. And I ask them, well, why was it so easy for her to grab her? And the kids are always really, really good about saying, it's because Sarah got too close to her. And I say, it's exactly right. So then I move into some of our big topics that we like to share around safety. And I said, the first one is about how to keep a safe distance. And what we tell children is when you're near a stranger, to somebody you don't know, we want you to keep 2 arms lengths of distance between yourself and that person you don't know. That way it's that much harder for them to be able to lean over and grab you. And I'll say, and if that person keeps walking closer to you, the way that Brooke was walking closer to Sarah, we want you to take a few more steps away so you can maintain that safe distance. So that way it's always much harder for them to be able to reach over and grab you. The next thing I talk to them about is some safety moves. And I'll say, if you are ever in a situation where someone is able to get too close and grab you, we have some safety moves that we want to show you. And before we talk about the safety moves, I don't want the children to ever feel nervous or scared. So I say, showing you these safety moves and talking to you about this is sort of like, doing a fire drill at school. The chances of there being a fire at school is very unlikely, but your teachers and people at school want to go over this with you just so you feel prepared. And that's the same thing with doing these safety moves, because the chances of an unsafe stranger grabbing you is very, very unlikely, but again, we just want you to feel prepared. So from there, we talk about some safety moves, and the children are always really, really excited to come and volunteer to show some safety moves. So right now, I'm going to have Sarah come and help with the safety moves. Sarah's going to pretend to be one of the students. So the first thing I do is I ask them, can you give me your arms? And I'm going to say, if you pretend that somebody had Sarah's arms really, really hard, if she couldn't use her arms, what part of her body could she use? And then they'll always raise their hand and say their legs or their feet. And we'll say exactly. So we'll say, what can she do with her feet? And they'll always say, she can kick you. And, they always come up with lots of really, really great things. A lot of them have taken, different kinds of martial arts. We say these are just some very simple moves we learned from the police department. So what we want them to say is they want them to kick low, because if you were to kick high, you can grab, the stranger could grab your foot. So we say 3 hard kicks right in your shin. So we said you can pretend, boom, boom, boom. And I'll say, ow! And then she'd be able to run away. We'll say, come back. What else could she do with her feet? And we want them to say to stomp really hard on the top of somebody's foot. So 1, 2, 3, and again, I'll say, ah! And she'll be able to run away. And the kids always really love doing all this stuff. We always have lots of participation. So the next thing we want to show them is if somebody had her really hard around the back like this, what could she do? And again, she could kick backwards into my shin, or she could stomp on my foot. Yeah. She could also take her elbow and elbow really hard in my ribs. And we explain to them to do 1 at a time for good aim. They do 2, they just have these funny little chicken wings, which they always love to hear. So we say 3 times really, really hard on your ribs. We also talk about if someone were to cover your mouth, what could you do? And from there, we talk about a pinky pull. And your pinky is this weak little finger. If you pull it, all the other fingers come along with it. Thank you very much. And so from there, we say, okay, so we've talked about our safe distance. We have our safety moves. So we ask the children, are they going to be really quiet? They're going to make a lot of noise. And from there, we talk about, we want you to make a lot of noise because we want people to know that something's going on. And from there, we show our safety yell. And our safety yell we describe as a different funny sounding yell because we want it to sound different on purpose. And also comes from this part of your body called your diaphragm. When you yell from your diaphragm, you can yell louder and longer, and you can run at the same time. So from there, I show them the safety yell. I'll do it really quickly. 1, 2, 3, oh! And the kids always have a really good time laughing about it because it does sound different. But we say we want it to sound different because if you're playing out on the playground, yelling and screaming. No one's worried that you're in danger. They just know that, you're having a good time. So when you hear this one, it's like a weird car alarm and people are gonna stop and really, really take notice. So then we talk about, we've got our safety moves, we've got our safety yell, we're keeping our safe distance, but at the end of the day, there's safety in numbers. And from there, we talk to the kids about, although they may be old enough to be walking home alone, walking home from school, stuff like that, we really don't want them going places on their own. We would really rather them be with other people. And so from there, we grab a couple volunteers and we do the skit again, and this is our successful skit.
Oh, hey, kids.
I don't talk to strangers.
Oh, come on, I'm just trying to be friendly.
No, I said no.
Stop, I got some candy in my car.
No.
No.
Oh!
So after the children see this successful version of this stranger skit, we then talk about, okay, if you were able to run away from that unsafe stranger, where would you go? And we do a little Q&A around places that they could go. Oftentimes a student will say that I'm going to go and hide. And we'll say, we're really glad you said that, but actually we don't want you to go anywhere and hide. We don't want you to be alone. So we talk about some really obvious places. You could run back to school. You could run home if you're close enough for home. Then we talk about things that the students wouldn't necessarily think of. Like you could run to a crowded park where you see lots of people, because we say there's safety in numbers. So it could be a crowded playground with lots of kids and lots of parents. It could be a store, it could be a little restaurant, it could be a library, it could be a fire station, a police station. It could even be a family walking on, just walking together. You're gonna run up to one of those people, you're gonna find an adult, you're gonna run up to them, you're gonna explain what just happened. They're gonna give you the opportunity to call home, explain what happened, and then they're gonna say, we also have to call the police now because we need to, talk to the police to help find this person. And they're gonna say, what did this person look like? So we have a little conversation about how to make a good description. So lots of times the children will, again, think of the obvious thing, what you were wearing. And we'll say, if all you can remember is what the person is wearing, that's fine. But, on a different day, that person's gonna be probably in different clothes. So what we try to explain to children is the things that you can't change easily are the best things to remember. So that's, was it a man? Was it a woman? Skin color, hair color, eye color, about how tall they were, about how short they are, about how old they were, eye color, tattoos, piercings, facial hair, whatever they can remember. And we say, we obviously don't want you to stick around too long. We want you to get away as fast as possible, but whatever you can remember that aren't things that can be changed easily are the best. So after we finish our standard conversation around strangers, I then ask the kids, okay, raise your hand and tell me if you play video games at home. There's usually a huge show of hands. Then I ask them, how about how many of you are using social media? And depending on the age, there may be more or less, but there's usually a lot more than you would think. And then I ask them, okay, if you're playing video games at home, how many of you are playing with people outside of your home? You're not just maybe playing with a sibling or playing against the computer. And again, there's usually more hands raised than you would think for elementary school students. So then I set up our first online unsuccessful skit, and I tell them to imagine that Sarah's in her home playing a video game and Brooke is at her home playing a video game, and let's sit back and see what happens.
This game is awesome. I'm racking up points.
Hey, what'd you say your name was again?
Sarah Jones.
And what's the name of your school again?
Spring Hill Elementary School in Spring Hill, Connecticut. Ever heard of it?
Oh wow, we actually live really close to each other. Want to meet at the playground at my school?
Cool, here's my phone number. Let's meet up now.
Now imagine we are changing to be at a park. Hey, you're Sarah Jones, right?
Yes, who are you?
I'm your friend from online.
But I thought you were my age.
You didn't ask.
Okay, so that's our unsuccessful online stranger skit. So again, I'll look at the students and say, tell me some of the mistakes that Sarah made. And they raise their hands and they say things like, she gave out her name, she gave her phone number, she said where she lived, she said where she went to school. And I'll say again, you're right. This is just like in the last skit. We don't share personal information with people online, just like we did in the previous skit when we're just walking down the street. And this is probably a good time to be worth noting that for the online pieces, this one and the one we did earlier in the presentation about online bullying, when we go into a classroom, specifically the younger grades, K, 1, and 2, before we present, we'll ask the teacher how many of the students are online. Because sometimes a first grade classroom is full of children who have a lot of older siblings who may have a lot of exposure to online already, or it might be a class where these first graders are the oldest in their family. So if the teacher doesn't think this information is appropriate for them yet, we don't present it. Or sometimes we present it in a way that's a little bit more modified for their age group. Anyway, so as we get back into this and we're talking to kids about what kinds of things are appropriate to be sharing, we'll say, what else did she do at the end? And they'll say she went and met Brooke at the park. And we'll talk about, do you ever go and meet people in the park or meet people anywhere in person that you met online? And the answer is always absolutely not. And what we really go back to is if you're playing a video game online with somebody and they're starting to all of a sudden ask you all these personal information, that's when it's time to really take a minute and say, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. If I'm just playing with a friend or another kid, they should know this about me, or this just doesn't feel right. To really trust their gut and say, wait, hold on a minute. And we'll call them again these red flags. And people shouldn't be asking you these things. And we'll say that's when it's time to take a minute, get a grown-up involved, and you might need to block this person, report this person, or just close down that game. And sometimes kids will say, well, I don't want to close down this video game. I've already gotten so many points. We'll say, you know what? Doesn't matter. What's most important is that you are safe. So this is probably a time where you're going to have to close down an account and open up a new one later. And from there, we talk about safe behavior online. When we talk about, we don't use our own picture as our profile picture. We don't use our own name when we're doing things. We don't share any of that personal information online, just as we wouldn't in real life in the other skit. And we also talk a lot about, if it's a social media piece, and this is more for our maybe 4th and 5th graders, about, public settings versus private settings. A lot of kids talk about how they have so many friends or so many followers, and we'll say, you know what, having that many, tons and tons of followers and tons of friends is really not a cool thing. It's actually putting you in the position to be getting in contact with more unsafe strangers. So we say, as you're getting older, you're going to be moving into middle school, you're going to be spending more time online. You really have to have a thought about how to keep yourself safe and to keep yourself safe from, online strangers that might be there. And now we're going to show the successful version of the online strangers.
This game is really fun. I'm racking up points.
Hey, where'd you say you lived again?
Why is this person asking where I live? My friends all know where I live. I must be playing with a stranger. This is creepy. I'm blocking them.
So then we move into the last part of our presentation, and I say to the kids, okay, we've already talked about bullying and bullying online. We've talked about strangers and strangers online. And then I explain to them, okay, this last piece is a little bit different. And this is a situation where there is an adult that you know that's making you feel scared or uncomfortable. And by that I mean maybe they're trying to touch you in a way that you don't like, or asking you to touch them in a way that you don't like. And I'll say, talking about this is kind of like talking about the fire drills and talking about the safety moves, that this is just in case something like this were to ever happen to you. But really the adults in your life, moms and dads and teachers and coaches and aunts and uncles and parents, they love you. They would never want to do anything to hurt you, but we want to talk about this just in case. And so from there, I set up the next piece, the next play, and I explain to them, in this play, I need you to imagine that Sarah has gone to stay at her aunt and uncle's house for the afternoon because her parents had to go out for the day. And then her aunt had to run out to the grocery store really quickly, so now she's just at home with her uncle, who's being played by Brooke. And I'll say, let's watch this skit and then we'll talk about it.
Hey, Hey, there's my favorite niece. What are you doing?
Just watching some TV.
Oh, well, you can watch that anytime. Why don't you scoot a little closer to me? Get closer, young lady. That's better. Wow, you're getting so old. How old are you now?
I'm 12.
Oh my goodness, you look great. Hey, you still like soccer?
Hey, I still like soccer.
Oh, well, if you give me one of those great big kisses of yours, I'll get you a new soccer ball.
I don't know, Uncle.
Right now. That's better.
I think I hear my aunt coming.
Oh, well, don't tell anyone about this. This is our little secret, okay?
Okay, so after the kids watch this first skit, obviously they're, a little squeamish. It's not their favorite thing to watch. I'll ask them, okay, how do you think Sarah was feeling in that play? And they'll say things like really weird, nervous, uncomfortable. And I'll say, absolutely. Does it look like she feels safe and strong and free? Getting back to these, rights that we talked about in the beginning of the presentation, we'll say definitely not. And I'll ask them, what was the last thing, Brooke, what was the last thing the uncle said to her before she was trying to leave? And they'll answer, this is our little secret. And I'll say to them, when you're leaving for school in the morning and your mom or dad or your caregiver gives you a hug and kiss goodbye, do they then say, no, this is our little secret? And they'll laugh and say, of course not. And then I'll say, or if you were to fall on the playground and a teacher or a person at school helps you up and pats you on the back, do they then say, now don't tell anybody, this is our little secret? And again, they'll laugh and they'll say no. And I'll say exactly, because hugs and kisses and pats on the back from grown-ups should never be a secret. And then I'll say, and actually, grown-ups shouldn't be asking you to keep secrets. It's not appropriate. And of course, every once in a while, there's a student who raises their hand. They'll say, well, you know what? We have a secret we're keeping in our house right now. We're planning a surprise party for my grandma. We'll talk about, well, how that's sort of like a happy surprise. It's not that kind of secret that's making you feel unsafe inside. And I'll say, so what could she do? And we want to hear them say that they can leave, that they don't have to stay there. They can go to another house, a neighbor's house down the street. They can go to another room and lock the door. They can go, if they have their phone, they can go outside and call their parents. They don't have to be staying there. And they can say no, or they can say stop. They can use those safety words. Even if this is their uncle, this is a family member, this person is taking away their rights, so they can use those words. And the most important thing they need to do is tell somebody. And I'll ask them, who can they tell? And lots of times the first person they'll mention is their aunt. And I'll say, just what if the aunt comes home and says, oh, you know what, that's just your uncle. He's just playing. What are you gonna do? And what I want to hear them say is they're going to keep telling people. They're gonna keep telling grown-ups until a grown-up believes them. And then at that point, I'll usually point to the teacher or teachers, however many are in the classroom, and I'll say, there's a person right here in this room right now who will always believe you. And I'll say, you can always come to school and you can always talk to people at school about it. And it doesn't matter if this is something that happened over a weekend. They can come back in on Monday. If it's something that happened over the summer or holiday break, they can come back in whenever and talk to them. And if it's 2 years ago, you can always come to school and talk to people at school. We really want to remind children that school is a safe place. You can come back and you can talk to them about it. And I tell them, but the most important thing I always want you to remember, if any thing like this ever happens, it is never, ever the child's fault. It is always the adult's fault. So I remind them they can go somewhere else, they need to tell somebody, and they can use those safety words. And then we try it again and they'll see the successful version.
Hey, Sarah, there's my favorite niece. What are you doing?
I was just watching some TV.
Oh, well, let's turn that off for now. You can watch it anytime.
I was watching that.
You can do it whenever. Besides, I want one of those great big kisses of yours.
No, I don't want to.
What do you mean? You always liked it.
No, I never liked it. You liked it.
Are you getting fresh with me?
No, I'm not getting fresh, but I am going outside. And I'm definitely telling somebody.
So after all this, we're sort of at the end of the presentation. And then we do a little review. I ask the kids, okay, so tell me again what our 3 special rights are. And they repeat that this is to feel safe and strong and free, and I tell them again, okay, we've got our safety moves, you've got our safety yell. I encourage them to go home, show the safety yell to their friends and family, but it's something that you don't play around with it. It's something you use only if you ever really need it. They have their safety moves. I tell them, please don't use them on your friends and siblings. And then I just sort of tell them they've done a great job. And then we wrap it up, and then we let them know that we'll be in the hall for the last few minutes. If there's something that they want to ask us about or something they want to share, we'll finish up and be out there to help them. And from there, that we're done. And we give them a big round of applause, and it's really a great presentation. We always get a lot of great feedback. The kids really look forward to seeing us come every year. And it's really a great program. So that is essentially everything that your children, your students will be seeing when we come. And again, I encourage you to please always reach out if there's ever any questions or anything you want to discuss. Thank you so much.